chapter 14, that is about reproduction. Okay, what is reproduction? Reproduction is the process by which living organisms produce new individuals of same species. Reproduction is necessary for the survival and increase in the population of a species. If organisms do not reproduce, their population decrease and species will become extinct. Now the question comes, do organisms create carbon copies of themselves? Yes. The organisms can create new individuals that look like very much like themselves. Why? Because the DNA molecule in the chromosome in the nucleus is responsible for the transfer of the characters from the parents to the offsprings, and the DNA copies will be similar like the parents. DNA copying during the reproduction is important for maintaining the body designs of the different organisms to survive in the existing environment. If there are variation in some individual of a species, they may be able to survive the changes in the environment. So, variation in the species is necessary for the survival of the different species and for the evolution of the new, new species. Now, the question comes, what is a reproduction and what are the different types of the reproduction? As I told earlier, that reproduction is a biological process by which new individual organisms are produced. It is a fundamental feature of all known life. Each individual organism exists as a result of the reproduction, and it is a mechanism of the species continuation. Okay, there are the two types of the reproductions: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction, in which new individuals are produced from a single parent, while in sexual reproduction, two individuals are involved to produce new individual. So, today's topic is main about the asexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction is a method of reproduction without participation of mate, gamete, or fertilization. It means that the common types of the asexual reproduction in animals are fission, budding, regeneration, fragmentation, parthenogenesis, and vegetative propagation. So first we will talk about the first type, that is the binary fission. Binary fission is a process where one cell divides to form two identical daughter cells. Fission is an asexual reproduction by which a unicellular organism divides and forms two or more individuals. Fission is of two types. It's a number one, binary fission; number two, multiple fission. In the binary fission, in this method, an organism divide and forms two individuals. First, the nucleus divide and form two nuclei. Then the cytoplasm divides and form two daughter cells. And the example can be the amoeba. Here we can have a look of the example of the amoeba here. Here this is the example in which the one parent cell duplicates its genetic material and finally divide into the two daughter cells, first by dividing the nucleus and then by dividing the cytoplasm, and it will become the separate two daughter nuclei. This is a kind of the binary fission in the bacterium. Okay, second one is the, you can say, the second process is of the asexual reproduction is the budding. In this method, a bud-like projection is formed on the body of the organism. The bud then develops into a new individual. It then separates from the parent and forms an independent individual. Many hydra, yeast, they are reproducing by mean of the budding process. So budding is like an outgrowth on the parent body, which afterward become into a separate individual. Third one is is still the example of the budding in the hydra, and many kind of the fungi are also you can see seeing the budding, and in the budding process simply a simple outgrowth or a bud appear, and that outgrowth or bud you can say do not detach at first, and when it become, you can say, it become bigger in the size, and then it can be detached from the parent body, and it can develop into a new separate plant by the process of the mitosis there. So this is all about the budding, which is in particularly happening in the yeast, in the hydra plant, in the, you can say, these are the example of them. Now come for the third type of the asexual reproduction, is the regeneration. In this method, a part of the body, if the organism is, if cut or broken, can develop into a new individual. Many examples are coming in it. For example, planaria, starfish. They both, if any part of the body is just being cut into many pieces, each fragment will be developed into a complete, you can say, body afterward. This is the example of the fragmentation in the starfish. Fragmentation, the other example of the fragmentation, in this method, the body of a simple multicellular organisms break up into smaller pieces on maturation, and each fragment develop into the new individual afterward. So we can say that this is also the example of the fragmentation here. And next to the fragmentation, okay, here is an example of the planarian. Planarian is a kind of worm, and its body, you can say, break up into the 8 or 9 pieces, and each piece develop into a mature worm afterward. So this is all about the fragmentation. Next is the spore formation. In this method, structures called sporangia produce tiny cells called spores. When the spores come in contact with a moist surface, it develops into a new individual. Many kind of the mushrooms, rhizopus, and penicilliums can reproduce by mean of the spore formation. So you can say, in the spore formation, each spore is covered with a thick wall called cyst, and it can survive unfavorable condition. And upon favorable, the spores germinate and develop into new rhizopus. Okay, some kind of the specific bacteria, such as Bacillus species, they can also reproduce by the by the same process, that is the spore formation. Okay, next one is the parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is also considered as a form of asexual reproduction. In it, an unfertilized egg develop into a new offspring. Some fishes, frogs, and insects produce by mean of the parthenogenesis. Similarly, queen bee lays egg in the cell, and in the honeycomb, many eggs remain unfertilized and develop into the haploid males by parthenogenesis. At the same time, some eggs are fertilized by the male bees, and these develop into a diploid females. And this is all about the parthenogenesis. Okay, last one is the vegetative propagation in plant. When vegetative parts of the plant, such as roots, stem, or leaves, give rise to a new plants, the process is called vegetative reproduction or the vegetative propagation. It occurs naturally and can also be brought about artificially. By natural, vegetative propagation includes bulbs, corms, rhizomes, stem tubers, suckers, and artificial propagation means cutting, grafting, etc. But we are not supposed to cover this topic in detail, so it's all about our today's topic, that is the asexual reproduction. Allah Hafiz.